Hello, students. This week at Delhi University, there was a very prestigious investment banking firm which came up with a GD topic. What are the lessons from Sri Lanka? Now, this kind of a topic obviously assumes that the students are aware of the recent financial turmoil at Sri Lanka. So, when we talk about group discussions, the first important imperative is that you need to be contemporarily aware of what is happening around, both in terms of economic life and the political life too. The topic related to Sri Lanka is a beautiful blend of the political come economic turmoil. Now, when such a GD comes, try to use something called the ITCC framework to be an active participant. An ITCC framework, instead of the Goba-Chakle approach, looks at I for introduction, T for 3 points in favor of whatever you are going to opine, then C for counterpoint, 1 to 2 points against whatever you have said or the weaknesses of your argument, and finally C's conclusion, an action path as to what should be done now. Now, let's quickly try to analyze the Sri Lankan issue. Now, when you are given such a topic, during the 3 to 4 minutes that you are given to prepare, you need to quickly analyze. You may not have the facts ready in the mind, so you need to have a reference that Indian economy being about 3 trillion, well, Sri Lankan economy may be about 20 times smaller than India. So that's 1 point of big difference. You also need to then try and make a logical analysis about the reasons why this crisis may have happened. So the points which should come to your mind is heavy indebtedness to China, who use geopolitical strategic tools to actually acquire Hambantota port over there and then in return offered loans which were quite expensive. Second, coronavirus. Because of COVID, Sri Lanka, which is heavily reliant on tourism, really suffered a big collapse. And number three, the various exports such as the food products or, for example, beverages, tea, coffee, which were trademark, also suffered. So, as a result of all of this, China made sure that Sri Lanka was in a position of great weakness. And as Murphy laws comes, things can go wrong when probably you didn't want them to. The worst thing happened was the inflation, which led to increase in food grain prices, oil prices. So Sri Lanka was trapped in a situation where its imported products were becoming more expensive, its exports were dying, and internally it was in a debt-laden state because of political crisis and its heavy indebtedness to not just China but other nations also. So from various factors, Sri Lanka got entrapped. So how do you introduce this? So if you want to be an opener, you could say, my dear friends, I welcome you all to this group discussion. Today, we have been given a most socio-political, economically pertinent topic that what are the lessons from Sri Lanka? So, before we discuss, please allow me to briefly introduce and explain the topic to you. Well, just about a couple of years back, Sri Lanka suffered a serious financial crisis when it was not able to pay its overseas debt. Now, this debt was owed to various countries, including predominantly China. Now, reason for this crisis is mainly three-pronged. Number one, the Sri Lankan earning of overseas US dollars because of the exports of travel and tourism services, its various products like tea, had suffered during the coronavirus period. Number two, the recent surge in food and fuel inflation price had led to a situation where China's and various other countries' debt burden was proving too expensive. And of course, Sri Lanka had to spend a lot on fuel and food import. And thirdly, because of the political turmoil and inefficient management by governance, following a liberal tax regime, the national income had fallen and the government was badly in debt. So much so that it just couldn't repay its debt obligations, forcing it to go bankrupt. That led to hyperinflation, internal crisis, and eventually a political collapse where the people accused that one particular political regime was doing its politics to make sure that they are making money by various unethical means. So this is how an introducer will introduce and then could probably invite. So my dear friends, now I look forward to your views that what are the learnings for India. Thereafter, suppose you are in favor that India doesn't have to be scared. India is a robust economy. So you think of three reasons why India shouldn't be overtly worried. So you could say that India is a huge economy, which is almost 20 times bigger than Sri Lanka or more. Secondly, India's current account deficit is nowhere as alarming as Sri Lanka. And you could also go on to say that India's foreign exchange reserves at the level of about $600 billion are more than sufficient to cover a typical current account annual deficit, which could be in the range of about $150 billion. So, our foreign exchange coverage ratio in terms of our reserves divided by current account deficit is about 3 or more. And that's something which is very, very different from the case of Sri Lanka, where this ratio was almost 0 or minus. So India's not just the interest coverage, but deficit coverage is more than well covered. So country doesn't have to worry. We are still receiving fixed deposits. We are receiving FDI from overseas countries. So we are nowhere comparable. And number three, you could say India's export services, despite the onsetting recession in Europe and various other parts of the globe, including maybe US, Canada to a certain extent, despite all of this, Indian exports are still registering a growth because when it comes to services, the need of services related exports is only increasing. And slowly, India's manufacturing policies are also helping India emerge as a manufacturing destination of choice. So this is how you have built an argument that why India should not be worried. On the other hand, there is a student who wishes to say that India should be worried, can then go, my dear friends, I wish to give three reasons why India should be really worried. Number one, the fact still remains that India is suffering a fiscal deficit which has been burgeoning because of coronavirus. And add that with current account deficit, which is now approximately to the tune of 150 to 200 billion, it's a matter of grave concern. Even though as of now, our foreign exchange reserves are more than 500 billion, but with the gradual increase of interest rates in USA, we are seeing capital flight. So our foreign exchange reserves could also deplete. And finally, if we are banking on our exports, the fact is that with the slowdown in European Union, UK and USA, the exports could also get very badly affected. So make no mistakes, India, although not in a similar position, has some serious lessons to keep in mind. So this is how you have given 1 point and then counterpoint, and then in the end, the summarizer or one person before the summarizer could give an action plan. And you could talk about what is it that Indian government can do. So you may like to conclude like this. So my friends, we can give 4 important recommendations to Indian government. Number 1, we must work with great efficiency to make sure that our resources, our assets are productively utilized. So government has to ensure that asset monetization scheme and various schemes which ensure better and efficient utilization of PSUs are bolstered so that the income increases. The second thing is to eliminate or reduce our import reliance. So the efforts to work on renewable energy, wind power, solar power, so that reliance on fossil fuels can be eliminated is a very vital strategic objective. The third thing is boosting exports. Make in India. So Modi government's initiatives to launch schemes like PLI, asset monetization, export incentivization schemes must be further accelerated because India needs to be a manufacturing destination of choice so that we could be an exporter. And finally, and most importantly, we must be very cautious when borrowing from overseas destinations because like China heavily overborrowed, nobody can help somebody who's borrowing more and then doesn't have the capacity to pay. So internal governance of debt management through close coordination between government and RBI is vital. So my dear friends, this is how I think our group would like to end the group discussion. So this is how you go ahead and do your effective participation. Please remember, your intervention every time you open your mouth should be about 30, 40, 50 seconds and do speak your proportionate time to get noticed by the jury. So use the ITCC framework and I hope that you will use it to ace at your group discussions. This is Gagan Singh signing off for the day. If you have liked the video, please press the like button, subscribe button. May the power of winning at Persona ever be with you.